Hey guys, it's Fox again from Martial Arts and Philosophy, and today I'm going to discuss the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings and whether they were morally justified from the perspectives of utilitarianism and Kant. So, to begin with, I think we all know this incident pretty well, but obviously, in order to end the Second World War on the battlefront with Japan, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on 2 different cities, the city of Hiroshima and the city of Nagasaki. The ethical argument for this was actually utilitarian based. The idea being that if we went ahead and dropped the bomb, we were going to kill fewer people than the amount of soldiers on both sides that would be killed if we had to continue to fight in traditional manner for Japan. So the utilitarians would obviously think this was okay, because you're going to be maximizing pleasure via the continuance of more lives for more individuals, and minimizing pain by, stopping the deaths, painful deaths of these various soldiers that would have participated in the battle for Japan. However, Kant would not be okay with this. If you look at the categorical imperative, we're saying that you can never treat a person as a means to an end, and very, very arguably, you were treating these civilians as a means to the end of the war. However, soldiers are going to be in a different class. As a soldier, you signed a piece of paper agreeing that you are probably going to go into combat, and that if death results, you're aware of that consequence. And so, being sent into battle as a soldier isn't disrespecting you, or it's not treating you merely as a means. You've actually agreed to that contract. Whereas the civilians made no such agreement, and so that's going to obviously be the crux of the problem for Kant. As a side point, I also think that this is another good demonstration of why consequentialism is problematic. If we're evaluating this based off of the consequences, we're saying that we should go ahead and bomb these cities because more people are going to die in battle. We're assuming that that's actually going to happen. Whereas, how do we know, really, how many soldiers would have died if they were in conflict? And how do we know when and if Japan would have surrendered on either side? That's a problem for making this kind of moral decision based off of that utilitarianism, similar to the one that I discussed in the last video. So I think this is another win for Kant, honestly. I believe that the categorical imperative shows here that it's pretty clearly immoral what we did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I think upon reflection and getting some distance from World War II, that most people would agree with me on this front. However, you might not, and I would love to hear your arguments as to why. So this now brings me to the next point of my video, which is that utilitarianism isn't always as bad as I'm making it out to be, especially in the last couple videos. There might be situations, for example, where the categorical imperative can't give us a good decision-making criteria. For example, imagine a situation where you have a train rushing towards a group of 20 individuals. You are positioned so that you could potentially pull a lever and change the train's track. However, in doing so, you're going to direct it towards a single individual. So this is obviously still somewhat of a complicated moral issue, because your action is going to, in this case, cause the death of one individual. However, your inaction would cause the death of 20 individuals. In this case, we can't really respect persons either way. We can't treat them as ends, because either way, somebody, or lots of people, are going to die. So we then need to make the decision morally based off of another kind of criteria. And in this case, I would actually suggest utilitarianism kind of thinking, where if we want to maximize pleasure, minimize pain, we'd pull the switch to kill the one individual. And I think that intuitively, given that that is our only option, that would be the right thing to do. So it seems possible then, if we assert Kant's categorical imperative as the top priority regarding our moral decision making, that we could then use utilitarianism as potentially a secondary part for our decision-making process. That is, where the categorical imperative cannot apply, we can then use utilitarianism. This is going to get around the problem of the evil hospital that I presented in the last video and allow us to use utilitarianism as a tool without disrespecting persons. So what we're getting into here now is the idea of moral pluralism. Moral pluralism is the concept that you could have more than one value that you think about when you're determining what makes an ethical decision. So, for example, Kant was a single value system. His system was determined by the fact that you could not treat a person merely as a means, and utilitarianism was also a single value system, meaning that it was right if you generated the maximum amount of pleasure and minimized the amount of pain in any given situation. But if we put these two together, we now have two values to contend with. And this is going to face its own set of problems, but we're going to get to that next time. So what do you think? Was it wrong to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Why or why not? Should we accept the supremacy of Kant's categorical imperative? And could we possibly create a hybrid utilitarian Kantian system? And what would that look like? I would be fascinated to know the answers to these questions, especially the last one. So please feel free to comment below, and until next time.